You walk through a glass door and a little bell announces you. Nobody looks up. The air smells like popcorn and something sweeter underneath it. Maybe spun sugar. Maybe the cheap perfume from the cosmetics counter near the front. The floor is linoleum, worn smooth down the middle from years of foot traffic. Overhead, the lights hum quietly. A woman in a pink uniform refills a napkin dispenser at the counter. Somewhere near the back, a child is asking for something and being told no in a tired, gentle voice. You are not in a hurry. You are not really sure what you came in for, and somehow that is perfectly fine. This was Woolworth's, and for most of the 20th century, it was one of the most familiar places in America. Most of those stores are gone now. The F.W. Woolworth Company once operated over 3,000 locations across the United States. It closed its last American five and dime in 1997. The buildings still stand in some towns, repurposed as dollar stores or antique malls, or left empty with the original tile still visible near the entrance. But the thing itself, the experience of it, the particular rhythm of a weekday afternoon inside one of those stores, that is gone in a way that is harder to explain than just a business closing. To understand what was lost, you have to go back to what it actually was. By 1962, Woolworths had been part of American life for over 80 years. Frank Winfield Woolworth opened his first successful 5-cent store in Lancaster, Pennsylvania in 1879. It was built on a simple and radical idea: display the merchandise out in the open so customers could see and touch it themselves, and keep everything priced low enough that almost anyone could afford to walk out with something. At the time, most stores kept goods behind counters and clerks fetched items for you. Woolworth turned shopping into browsing. That was genuinely new. By the middle of the 20th century, the stores had become something more than a place to buy things cheaply. They had become a kind of neighborhood institution, as much a part of the weekly routine as the post office or the parish church. You went to Woolworth's for school supplies in August and Christmas ornaments in November, a bag of mixed nuts in the winter, a bottle of lotion whenever yours ran low. You went because it was there, and because it had almost everything, and because nothing in it would cost you more than you had. The lunch counter was the heart of it. Most Woolworth's locations had a long counter running along one side of the store, usually lined with round swivel stools bolted to the floor. You could sit down for a grilled cheese sandwich and a cherry Coke for about 40 cents. You could get a bowl of soup and a piece of pie. The menu was simple. The food was reliable in the way that American diner food was reliable. Not remarkable, but consistent and warm and honest. Mothers brought small children there on errand days. Elderly women stopped in for coffee between appointments. Teenagers sat 3 or 4 to a cluster of stools on Saturday afternoons with nowhere else particular to be. There was no particular rush to any of it. The woman behind the counter knew the regulars. She knew who took cream and who did not. She might ask about your mother or your new job. The transaction was never only a transaction. The rest of the store unfolded in low wooden bins, glass-topped counters, and spinning wire racks. You could buy sewing notions, ribbon by the yard, yellow canary or navy blue. You could buy a goldfish in a small plastic bag. There were cosmetics under glass, hair rollers in pink boxes, birthday cards in a rotating display, and a wall of candy sold by the pound, scooped by a teenager into a white paper bag. There were ceramic figurines and plastic barrettes and small tools and cheap picture frames and things with no clear category, but that someone, somewhere, was always going to need. This was the five and dime model. It worked because it served the real material life of ordinary people. Not aspirational shopping, not luxury, just the 10 or 15 small things that a household quietly needed every few weeks, all in one place at prices that assumed you were careful with your money. The employees were mostly women, mostly local, mostly part-time. The store manager was usually someone who had come up through the company and knew the inventory the way a tradesman knows his tools. There was a routine, and within that routine, a kind of civic steadiness. These were not glamorous jobs, but they were clear jobs with familiar faces and a real place in the neighborhood's daily life. What changed was not any single thing. It was a combination of pressures that arrived gradually over the course of the 1960s and 70s. The suburbs grew outward, and with them came the shopping mall and eventually the big box store, built on a scale that made Woolworth's look modest. A store that stocked 15,000 products could not easily compete with one that stocked 200,000. Kmart opened its first store in 1962, the same year we are imagining this afternoon. Walmart arrived not long after. These new retailers took the same low-price logic that Woolworth's had pioneered and expanded it far beyond what a downtown five and dime could match. At the same time, downtown itself was changing. Middle-class families moved outward, and with them went the foot traffic that Woolworth's depended on. Urban renewal projects and highway construction cut through old commercial corridors. The woman who used to stop at the lunch counter on her way home from the dress shop stopped doing that. Either the dress shop had closed, or she had moved to a subdivision 20 minutes away and drove everywhere now. The lunch counters also became a significant sight during the civil rights movement, most famously at the Greensboro Woolworths in North Carolina, where 4 black college students sat down in 1960 and refused to leave after being denied service. That sit-in and the hundreds that followed across the South changed the public meaning of those counters permanently. By the mid-1960s, most Woolworth's lunch counters had desegregated, but the cultural moment had already shifted something. The counter was no longer just a place to eat a sandwich. It had become a symbol, and symbols carry a weight that is hard to sustain during a Tuesday lunch rush. By the 1980s, the stores were struggling to define what they were. The merchandise felt dated. The locations were often in declining downtown districts or aging strip malls. The company tried renovations and rebranding. It converted many stores to a new athletic footwear format called Foot Locker, which succeeded where Woolworth's was failing. In 1997, the company closed the last of its American variety stores and renamed itself Foot Locker. The five and dime was over. What you cannot find anymore is harder to name than the store itself. It is something about the quality of that Tuesday afternoon, the lack of urgency, the idea that a store could be a place you wandered through without any specific purpose and still feel welcome. The lunch counter where nobody asked you to scan anything or leave a review. The quiet human weight of a woman who knew how you took your coffee because she had been making it for you every Thursday for 4 years. The feeling that everyday life and neighborhood life were not separate things, but woven together in the same linoleum-floored room. If you remember walking through those glass doors, I would be glad to hear what you remember. Leave it in the comments below. And if this kind of history interests you, if you find yourself drawn to the quiet corners of the American past that don't always make it into the history books, consider subscribing. There's more where this came from, and none of it is in any particular hurry.